Next on the agenda is Mr. Battaglia, candidate for U.S. Representative for District 3.
That's Battaglia.
Sorry, say it so I don't get it wrong.
Marco Battaglia.
Battaglia. I gotta get this Italian thing done. I'll get it.
I know, right? They coached me not to talk with my hands.
There are two objections to his candidacy. The candidate wrote Marco Battaglia. The top of his affidavit of candidacy for the ballot, but signed it using his legal name, Mark Andersen. And the second item is the validity of the number of signatures. We'll start with the name issue. Is Ms. Kuhle or Mr. Enos here today?
I'm here on their behalf, Mr. Secretary. Again, Alan Ostergren on behalf of the objectors.
Yes,
Okay.
Ms. Marco.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The basis for the objection is that the affidavits of candidacy purport to nominate Marco Battaglia, but the candidate's real name is Mark Andersen. From what's been provided to me from his responses, I don't think there's any dispute that that's actually his legal name. So I'm going to move past some of the documents we filed to establish that the gentleman's legal name is Mark Andersen. The issue is a candidate cannot run on a name that's not his legal name. We recognize, as I put in the papers, Tom Miller can run as Tom Miller even though his name is Thomas J. Miller, or Rob Sand can run as Rob Sand even if his given name is Robert or Robin or whatever it is. We don't dispute that. The question is, can you run under a name which is not your legal name, which you have adopted? And this would create an enormous peril for confusion of voters if the panel were to uphold the precedent that a person can just essentially make up a name and say, I go by this, and appear on the ballot even though it is not his or her legal name. And I'll use an example. What would stop a candidate next cycle from saying, my name's Chuck Grassley, I'm running for the Senate? If the panel does not uphold the objection, there'd be nothing that would prevent somebody from just adopting the name that they want for whatever electoral advantage that they think is appropriate and file to get on the general election ballot. Because of the danger of voter confusion, because of the integrity of the process, the panel should not allow Mr. Andersen to appear as Marco Battaglia, and the petitions are not sufficient to put Mark T. Andersen on the ballot. They've nominated somebody who is not his legal name. They've nominated a fictitious identity, and therefore those petitions are not sufficient to place the candidate on the ballot under whatever name. And for those reasons, that name should not appear on the general election ballot.
Any questions from the panel? Any questions from the panel? Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Battaglia, you want to speak, or do you have a representative?
So again, Stephanie Berlin, Chair of the Libertarian Party of Iowa. There is no reasonable basis, in fact, for this objection. First of all, Mr. Battaglia is a living, breathing Iowa resident. He's been a qualified candidate for the 3rd District. He has timely and fully complied with all applicable requirements to appear on the general election. And the objectors themselves really haven't claimed otherwise. They've claimed he's a fictitious person. They put in all sorts of odd things into the exhibit, claiming he's trying to pretend he's some football player when, I don't know if you know this, but Mark Andersen is also a defensive tackle. I don't know if we're trying to go that route.
Mark Andersen has done every occupation
Correct.
in the state or the country, probably in the world. Sorry.
That's okay.
And including the one that I do. There's a guy there who was named Mark Andersen, and it's spelled S-O-N. I'm like my name. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's about my name. I get passionate. I apologize.
So, and the other thing is, again, I do not believe that the objectors themselves have standing. In the exhibits, I saw no evidence that either objector reside as an eligible voter in the 3rd Congressional District. At this time, it would be too late to provide that evidence. As there is none, there's no standing to be had. But let's continue on. The objector here says that there is a basis for a legal name. He is adding in additional statutory requirements where one does not exist. It does not say real name as he puts in his objection paperwork, as real is not a legal definition. He also did not put legal name in that objection. Well, that would have a definition. It is not statutorily required. And in fact, many people have appeared on the ballot, including some in the upcoming election. Ashley Henson is not running under her legal government name. That is her maiden name. And if we insist on not allowing Marco to run as the name is he known by, neither should we allow Republicans, Democrats, Green, Constitutional Party, none of them should be allowed to run under their maiden or otherwise name. Now, it continues. Mr. Battaglia has appeared on the ballot in 3 general elections as Marco Battaglia. He is known professionally as Marco Battaglia in his band. Everybody knows who he is as Marco Battaglia. There is no option that he is anybody other than Marco Battaglia. And in fact, if you ask people who is Mark Andersen, they're gonna be like, I don't know. But this gentleman has name recognition. And so no authority, just to sum up, shows that we have a statutory requirement that gives and requires a legal name. By voting to uphold this objection, you are adding statutory language where none exists. He has also appeared on the ballot numerous times. And voters do not see the affidavit. He signed it that way because that is what the notary requires with his government ID. But if he appeared on as Mark Andersen, there would absolutely be voter confusion. As a result, I would like for you to not uphold this objection and allow Marco to be on the ballot in November.
Thank you. Panel have any questions, comments?
Yes, I have one question. So, just to be clear, is your legal name Mark Andersen?
Mark Thomas Anderson. It's spelled Mark, excuse me. Legal name, Mark Thomas Anderson, M-A-R-K, Thomas, like my dad, Thomas Anderson, and my oldest son is Luca Anderson, and my youngest son is Justice Nello Battaglia. I was going to change the name at some point, but anyway, yes, Mark Thomas Anderson, and that's my legal name.
Any other questions? All right. Is there a motion before the board, panel?
I move to deny the objection, leave Mr. Battaglia on the ballot.
Any discussion?
So just looking at the Iowa Code, especially Chapter 45, I think that we're bound here today to follow the law on the books, the Iowa Code, when it comes to the objection panel. And I'd also note that any decision we make here today can be appealed to a district court. So this is more of an informal process. But the Iowa Code says the candidate name needs to be in the form the candidate wants it to be on the ballot. And I think that means in the form of the candidate's name, not someone else's name. So I think I could not overrule the objection. I think I have to sustain the objection, but it's because of what Iowa Code says.
Is there a person in Iowa named Marco Battaglia by their legal name?
Not to my knowledge. I didn't even know the one that they put in my, as an example. I think he's a retired NFL player from another state. But I mean, there's like, the reason I took on that name the very first time I ran for governor of Iowa was because there's a million Mark Andersons, and some of them have records, and I didn't want someone to be able to pull out, oh, this guy's got a Nazi tattoo, or this guy's beat up a woman or something, and say, oh, that's Mark Andersen. I thought if there's Marco Battaglia, there's just me, everybody knows who I am in the state, it falls back on me. You know, I toured around the region and the district and the state and the USA playing with my band, and so they know it's me, it falls back on me.
May I say something as the objector?
No, I'm sorry. would note, when we were looking at some of these issues, that many states choose to permit nicknames, but they have certain conditions and limitations on them. And that makes this a little more complicated by any means. The objection, I guess I'm looking at this objection from the standpoint, if I were a voter, I would have concerns on being able to look into you. Who are you? Because when the nomination papers are going around, there's one name on it, and if I Google it or start looking for information on you, I wouldn't necessarily know who I'm looking at. I think that's concerning. When you talk about the difference between a Rick and a Richard, it's a little easier to narrow down the candidate. This is a totally different name, not even close. It makes it very complicated, but, I'm sorry.
Can I add something to that?
Very, sure.
My son's name is Justice Battaglia, which is the historical name that I was gonna take when I was going to get married. So I think this plays into a lot of different situations that come up with ballot, that have a lot of historical precedent. My youngest son is in public school. His name is Justice Battaglia. Literally Battaglia, that's, so I mean, he's known in public. When he goes out, he's more popular than I am. I was like, look, there's Justice, give him a high five. So I just mean, this is a little different than the way you framed it.
Wouldn't there be a higher likelihood of confusion if you ran as Mark Andersen, since there's more than one Mark Andersen and no one is aware of any additional Marco Battaglias?
May I add something to that? If you Google Marco's name, article after article after article, and interview shows up with him as Marco Battaglia, I would argue, just like he said, it would be significantly more difficult to identify a Mark Andersen. And as a follow-up, again, 45.5 only says name, does not add legal, it does not say real.
Counsel, do you think there's an estoppel argument here, since Mr. Battaglia has been on the ballot prior
Thank you.
under this same name without objection, and he's been using this same name to run for office? Wouldn't an objection at this point, when he's already done it, be in some way unfair?
I would agree. He's been on the general election ballot 3 times, once in the primary election and then once 2 years ago as well. And no one has made this argument. What's that?
Attorney General of Iowa, two-way race against Tom Miller. Everyone knew where I lived. They could come to my house and say hello, unlike so many other politicians. I have great respect for that office.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the panel, comments from the panel?
I guess the only legal comment I would make is I don't think Iowa law allows someone to run for office under a fictitious name that's not their name.
All right, we have a motion. Those in favor of rejecting the objection, say aye. Opposed? Opposed. So the motion fails. So we're back to the motion we made to remove, or to honor the objection.
I move to sustain the objection on the ground of the name.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
All right, motion carries. That would complete this hearing for that particular case. This time we're taking a short break. We'll shift